A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Season 1, Episode 3 is called The Squire. And the Squire is obviously Egg. At least that's how he starts the episode, Egg the Squire. What I really like about Egg the Squire is that he loves his job. We see him talking to the horse, and he expands on his philosophy of dealing with horses, how he disagrees with his father. It's early in the morning following the last episode, and he's taken one of Dunk's horses out for some training, and he coaxes the horse into running around, like it will have to in the joust. But Egg is also role-playing what he will have to do, talking about Duncan, giving him his sword and the other equipment and stuff like that. The showmakers have clearly managed to find a really charming young actor to play Egg, and he really manages to capture the screen during these scenes. He's really interesting to watch. Even when there's another actor in there, he manages to hold his own against the older character, who is Sir Robin Riesling, the maddest knight in the Seven Kingdoms. Sir Robin doesn't mind this description. He says he's a vessel for the warrior. Although he's only on the screen for a few lines, I think he manages to make an impression. I liked the use of we. We'll be fair. We'll be level-headed. The only problem with Sir Robin, he looks very much like Mad Moody out of the Harry Potter films. I guess if you've got a one-eyed character, there's only so many ways that you can costume that. But it's very Mad Moody from Harry Potter. So we'll see how that one goes, I guess. The third thing I really liked about this episode was the growing relationship between Dunk and Egg. So once Egg returns to the camp, Dunk is at first angry with him for not informing Dunk where they were going to go, and then realises that he's doing the wrong thing. Dunk decides to take a different approach. He starts to teach Egg how to sew some stuff, and then when Egg complains about the salt beef, Dunk goes and buys him some proper food, some bacon, some eggs. It looks really good. I didn't realise they had sandwiches in Westeros. That was quite interesting, but I guess we'd already seen that in one of the trailers, I think. After the breakfast, they go and see some of the jousting, so the tournament has already started. It's Aerion Targaryen who is selecting an opponent, so he's kind of the main Targaryen in this episode. I guess in the previous episode it was more kind of Baelor, who was kind of the central guy, but in this episode, it's Aerion. We see him choose a knight to fight against and then deliberately injure the other guy's horse. What's also noticeable in this scene is how the character of Egg changes. Egg's been really enjoying the jousting, but he suddenly becomes very serious. So as I say, the joust happens, and it looks like he deliberately injures the other guy's horse, which the small folk who are viewing the joust are very unhappy about. They're very angry about Aerion's behaviour, and they start rioting, essentially, and soldiers come in and they try and calm things down. And Baelor looks very anxious about it. He looks like he's quite worried about this development, which I'll discuss a little bit more later on. After the joust, Dunk and Egg go to Lyonel Baratheon's tent, and we hear a song about Alice with the 3 fingers and the magic she can work with all 3 fingers, even if you only pay for one of them. So there's clearly someone who's writing for the show who has an obsession with the human body, with its various orifices and its various biological processes. We see the master of the games again in this episode, and he's doing a lot of his, how can we put this, swirling of the water around his mouth and spitting a lot. So yeah, there's clearly somebody working out their obsession with the biological processes of the human body. With Alice with 3 fingers, but it's a very well done song, and the philosophical debate aspect was really nice as well, I guess. So yeah, that was pretty funny, but there's clearly something going on with someone in the show, and okay, we'll see how that develops, I guess. Next, we come to the prophecy. This is really interesting from a lore point of view, and also very funny, a very good example of the humour in the show. So this is like the one time that Dunk is actually cynical about things. So Dunk's prophecy, something along the lines of, you'll have great success and you'll be richer than a Lannister. I think the richer than a Lannister thing, I think I've heard that a couple of times, maybe in the show, maybe I've read it in the books, but that seems to be a very generic kind of Westeros statement in there. And then after Dunk hears his prophecy, he says, "Do the boy." The witch says something like, "You'll be the king, you'll die in a fire, worms will eat your ashes, and everybody will be glad that you're dead." And Dunk just laughs it off completely. So it is quite a horrifying thing to say to a 9-year-old, but the way it's played makes me wonder, did Dunk and Egg actually hear the same thing? Is there some kind of magic going on here, where Egg heard one set of words and Dunk heard a different set of words, perhaps? Perhaps Dunk just literally wasn't listening. Perhaps he was expecting some kind of trite cliche and that's why he didn't respond to it at all. So, in terms of the grander universe, I guess the prophecy scene is the main thing in the episode. I guess the scene could be looked at two ways. It's another scene that reveals Dunk's character, or it's part of the grander lore of the TV shows and the books. After they hear the prophecy, we get to Raymond Fossaway. He invites Dunk to go for a drink, and Dunk accepts, and Egg decides he's going to go to the puppet show. In Raymond's tent, he and Dunk discuss the Targaryens. Lots of interesting stuff here. Raymond talks about them being incestuous aliens, blood magicers, and tyrants. So earlier on, I mentioned the riot that happened at the jousting because of Aerian's bad behaviour. So this is a different Targaryen family to the Targaryens in the House of the Dragon. These are Targaryens without dragons. These are Targaryens who are less special than they used to be, who aren't really any different, who happen to be the kings of the realm. However, why are they in that position? Maybe that's why Baelor looked so anxious. They know that they don't have the control of Westeros that they used to have. For example, the use of the word incestuous. When the Targaryens had dragons, they could marry brother and sister, and who was going to say anything about it? Who was going to do anything about it? That doesn't mean that the existing Westerosi family accepted that. That means they had no choice but to accept that incest. Like the prophecy scene, I guess, like a more grounded version, a more realpolitik version of the prophecy scene. Towards the end of the conversation, Dunk mentions that at the jousting, Maekar wasn't present. And Raymond explains that this is because Maekar has left Ashford and he's looking for two of his missing children. So Maekar has 4 sons, and Raymond Fossaway gives us a rundown of them. The eldest one is Daeron. Daeron is a sot, an alcoholic, a drunkard. The second son is Aerion. Aerion is vain and cruel, Raymond says. He's all smiles and chivalry as long as his father's watching. The third son is so useless he's going to be trained as a maester. And the fourth one, we don't get to hear what the fourth one is like, because at that moment, Egg runs into the tent and says that he needs his help. It's Tanselle at the puppet show. So Dunk goes to the tent where the puppet show is happening, and he sees that Aerion is physically assaulting Tanselle. He breaks one of her fingers. Dunk attacks him, and it takes 3 men, 3 of Aerion's men, to hold Dunk down and restrain him. Just as Aerion is about to start torturing Dunk, Egg walks in and reveals who he is. He is Maekar's 4th son, and he demands that the soldiers, who he names personally, let Dunk go. And that's the end of the episode. So this was an episode of 2 halves. There was some slow character stuff at the beginning. I really liked it a lot. And then by the end, it speeds up. We get the confrontation that leads us into the second half of the series. It seems that Dunk and Egg have kind of found peace in Ashford in some ways. They have established a relationship with each other. And now we can move on to the action part of the series, I guess. So I'm still really enjoying it. I also like how they've managed to weave in the Blackfires, who I don't think are mentioned in the books. So they've basically managed to weave in the Blackfires through Egg, through what he says about them. For example, the song that he uses, which is very, very funny. It's a good way to incorporate the mythos and the legend of the Blackfires. I guess that what Egg says about them is what the Targaryen family say about them. So I think adding in the extra Blackfire stuff has been a bit of a success. 3 episodes down, 3 more to go. And yeah, I still really like it. Thanks for watching.